Welcome to Bare Bones. With your host, Danny Meehan and Dr. Mason West.
And Bears fans, to this episode of Bare Bones, we are smack dab in the middle of not the most exciting time in the Chicago and NFL schedule. Bulls got an interesting draft pick. Both Cubs and Sox suck, but some Bears football's on the way, right, Danny?
Cubs and Sox suck. The Bulls are uninspiring, to say the least. I mean, I get the draft this year was split into Wednesday and Thursday, but I believe it was around the 28th pick. Arturas Karnisovas was already speaking to the media. Like, I get it. You're not probably picking again tonight, but why are you already talking?
Just pretend like you're still like calling and, just assessing the board and stuff at least.
Can you at least humor me? Like, I understand you're probably not, but I mean, I guess they were rewarded in some sense on Wednesday night with Matas Buzelis just kind of falling into their lap, who at one point during this draft process, in a weak draft class, mind you, was projected to be a number one overall contender, and he fell all the way to 11. So, and he at least started out his high school career in Hinsdale Central, and he's a local kid. So I believe he's the first Bulls lottery pick to be from the Chicago area since Derrick Rose in 2008. So you're talking, what, like 14 years, 16 years, something like that?
Yeah, right around there. It's pretty crazy. And like you said, I mean, if I had my wish list, I mean, he was definitely near the top of it, but at the same time, sitting at 11, you didn't think that there was a chance of that happening. So, Ron Holland was on my list. Topic was on my list. I'll settle, quote unquote, settle. I think he's going to be very good for Devin Carter. But I mean, when someone like that with that much potential ends up at pick 11,
exactly.
And I know everyone's going to take this differently, but a little bit of that. I like to say trash talk swagger. Some people just call it annoying, especially when you're, 100 pounds soaking wet kind of a guy. But I'm excited. I mean, in a weak class, he's got potential.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's just take the big, long, strong, fast guy and hope it works out.
But this is a Bears podcast, so we need to get to talk Bears. What we did was we threw together a list, ultimately 10 different storyline topics, just to make sure that we touched all the bases we could. What we did was myself, Danny, Kyrie, a couple other individuals who are part of the Windy City, Second City Gridiron family, Taylor Dahl, Lesser Wiltfong, et cetera, a couple other individuals, all voted and ranked these 1 through, I think we had 22 options. I went a little crazy when writing the list out. But basically we got put them in order, 1 to 10, and we're going to talk about them. Just getting you ready for some potential storylines heading into training camp. Ready, Danny?
Yeah, born ready, man.
So I'm not going to lie. I played with the list a little bit. I tinkered. So for 2 reasons. One,
that messes with the integrity of the list.
Or what? For the first thing, some of the things did overlap. So you'll see, for example, one of the topics talks about center, but we're going to talk about. There's another one at 10, at 11 that I was able to combine into that. Same, so on and so forth. But number 2, I wanted to talk about punters, so I made this happen.
Oh, for the love of God.
So to be fair, when we did the ranking, it ended up at number 12 with an average score of 11.1666. So it did barely miss out making the top 10 naturally. But again, I did.
You really just wanted to talk about Tory Taylor with this game down too.
Because I think it matters. And whether you think it matters like I do, or you just think it'll be a storyline that will be talked about, you can look at it either way. It's going to be a topic at training camp, right?
Oh, it's going to be, especially because when the early returns, especially at OTAs and rookie minicamp, where he was awesome. There was no way around it. He was just, simply put, better than better or as good as advertised coming out of Iowa. Like, especially, and then you factor in the whole Eberflus as a defensive coach thing, flipping the field as a weapon. You're going to play ball control, especially with a young quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it all plays into one another. My personal belief is always it's going to become he's a punter. Like, he doesn't matter too much to me.
And obviously, people who listen to the show know Huckleberry Pop-Tart, you all right? Tory Taylor with an exclamation mark. By the way, I have a dog named Huckleberry. I see a dog in your little picture there, so maybe we share dog names there. But I took Tory Taylor in the impact draft. I believe it was third or fourth out of 5 there. I think it was fourth. I truly think that for a couple of reasons. One, you punt a good amount. Even the best teams, you're going to punt. 2, we see good punters affect the game. You hear conversations had about when you have to start inside your own 10, inside your own 5, even how that messes with you mentally, being able to flip the field. It's, as a Bears fan, we should understand how it feels to have to always start, it seems like, inside your own 10 and how tough of an uphill battle that is. But another layer, and we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago, is, and this actually will lead, why not, just right into our number 9 pick here, which is that kickoff rule impact and ultimately the impact on the final 53. This got voted officially like for realsies at number 10, by the way, at 10.333 as the average. Tory Taylor, more likely than not, has a stronger leg and a potentially more accurate leg and a bigger body. Is he going to be the guy that also does kickoffs for you? So that as a last line of defense, you have someone who knows how to tackle, because in Aussie rules, you have to be able to hit someone. So it's not just a punter. It's also someone that, especially in this first year when teams are trying to figure out what the heck you're doing with this new kickoff, someone who can make a tackle if, lo and behold, things don't work out.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I actually think he's probably going to be the quote-unquote kickoff specialist, just because while the leg strength was improved by Cairo Santos, he still doesn't have the strongest leg there is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But really, the 9th storyline kind of gives life to Velus Jones again, right? A guy who is very certainly, clearly on the roster bubble after a very not so good start to his career, shall we say? I'm trying to think of how to phrase it without being mean.
It's weird, though. Every time he touched the ball, it was like either a first down or a touchdown for a while there. He just didn't do it often.
Yeah, he just didn't touch the ball often because he wasn't good enough at picking up the playbook.
Oh, that's later. And was hurt and a couple other things.
Yeah, well, it was groin issues early on,
Hamstring,
right?
yeah.
Hamstring, yeah. So it's soft tissue stuff. I think it matters, especially now more than ever, because I believe the kickoff coverage team can't move until the returner touches the ball now, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So, I mean, you give that kind of athlete that kind of space, like, things get interesting in a hurry. And I know they stole the rule from the XFL or the whatever the league is, the Rock and whatever, combined with the USFL. Or is it the UFL, the United Football League now? Like, so it's another thing the NFL has taken and infused into their own league to make the product better. Because we had reached a point with kickoff since we'll call it the Hester rule. Like, they literally changed the rule because Hester was so good to basically make kickoffs non-existent. Like, it was just kick the ball out of the end zone and just get to the 25 and be done.
The perfect go to the bathroom, grab another beer time.
Yeah. Now it's like no one's kicking out of the end zone anymore. Or if you do kick it into the end zone, there's incentive to actually like try because the other team isn't moving yet. So I think it actually makes Velus Jones' job on the roster a little more secure than it might have been before, because it felt like a coin toss at best prior.
Yeah, I think it was definitely one where he wasn't off the team, but he also wasn't, I don't think, guaranteed on the team. But then with this, it's something essentially that more or less, I would say, not locks him in, but increases certainty. It's interesting too. Richard Hightower was heard saying that Bears will consider anybody with a helmet that can kick off under new rule. So I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be Torrey Taylor. It could be. I know the Chiefs are playing with their safety Reed to do the kickoffs, just basically because you're actually rewarded by kicking it in play. So if you don't need to have a gigantic leg, but looking at it from even a larger standpoint. So I was listening to the Bootleg podcast. So Brett Coleman, EJ Snyder, I was listening to the Titans conversation they were having. Yes, I'm that much of a football sycophant that I'm sitting there listening to a Titans hour and a half long preview. But EJ Snyder also awesome. Go listen to all his stuff on Windy City as well. City Gridiron as well. And what Brett brought up was the way that they have it set up, as Danny talked about. It's almost more like a run play with how the blocking and the lanes are going to be formed. So they were talking about it in context of the Titans depth chart, their running backs. Why am I blanking on their running back's name? Who is Tajay Spears, and how he could have some kick return value. But so same thing for the Bears. The obvious one is Velus Jones, but to me, I keep bringing him up. I know I have a soft place in my heart for him for a lot of reasons, but he is Ian Wheeler. Is he a guy that sneaks on to the final 53 because he does have special teams value? And you might want two guys back there returning kicks. You might want to rotate them. He also has gunner value, things of that nature. And we talked about this when it came to the draft, right? Certain bodies being drafted, more linebacker types who can actually throw more of a solid block than necessarily maybe you have someone as an up back that you wouldn't have in that perspective. So you're going to see early in training camp, if you go watch it, in preseason games for sure, a lot of special teams coaches and teams trying to figure out what the heck they're doing. And you're going to see potentially some wonkier, I think, final 53s. Like, a couple more tight ends, a couple more running backs than you might normally have.
Yeah, I would agree with that, just especially because when, like you said, it's not just the blocking, it's the tackling aspect.
Yeah.
You can't just throw a DB in there now. You can never have enough corners. Well, corners aren't as good at tacklers as linebackers are, right? So, or at least traditionally, every so often you get guys like Charles Tillman, and even you go back some years, like Tim Jennings was a really good, solid tackler despite being diminutive. But by and large, linebackers are better tacklers than defensive backs.
I'll definitely be excited when I go to training camp. Normally during the special teams time, it's boring. They're fake kicking it down and a bunch of weird fits are happening. It'll be actually interesting to see how they're lining things up differently here. Number 8, Braxton Jones, a man you pay? ? So it's interesting because during draft season, there was talk of, do you draft a left tackle? Let's say Joe Alt had fallen to you, or you wanted to, take one of the other. There were plenty of really good tackles in this draft. How confident were you in Braxton Jones being your left tackle? And ultimately, is that a position you upgrade? He has been a guy very solid, in my opinion, very solid. Had an injury thing last year. I don't know that you necessarily need to replace him, but when you start to look at what some tackles get paid on the open market, what kind of contract does he demand, especially if he plays very well this year? And ultimately, is drafting a guy like Karan Amagaji a sign of, well, if we can't come to a deal with you, if Braxton plays very well, but you don't necessarily want to pay him, that we can potentially throw him in as our left tackle? So
the Braxton Jones conundrum almost feels eerily reminiscent of the Charles Leno one, right?
Oh, good example.
Where it's like he's good enough, and he's probably very clearly one of the 32 best left tackles in football, but he just lacks something. And it's not necessarily bad, but it's enough to make some within the fan base irate and irascible, I guess would be a word I would use. Because you feel like you can always find better.
Yeah.
And I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that Karan Amagaji was almost like Poles feeling like he was hedging his bet a little bit, especially coming from someone, Mason, from like the draft time, that I'm a big Karan Amagaji fan. That's a guy I really liked his tape. And even though I admit it looked like he was playing with his food at times a little bit in the Ivy League, because he was just, simply put, more gifted than people he was playing against. So he could get away with stuff that you just can't get away with in the Big Ten, ACC, SEC, whatever the major power that your football team is playing in. I think this year specifically is very big for Braxton in terms of, is he the long-term answer? Because he's got 2 years of control left, right? So it makes me wonder, is this the prove it year for Braxton Jones? Like, hey, we're entrusting you with this spot, but your replacement is potentially already on the roster.
Yeah, if you're a Bears fan, you're almost sitting in this weird middle where you obviously want your left tackle to be very good and protect Caleb Williams and be a stalwart, but at the same time, you also don't want him to necessarily be too good because you don't want to have to pay too much. I mean, when you look at left tackle contracts, yes, right tackles have caught up for sure because as defenses have realized, we don't necessarily need to put our best pass rusher against the left tackle. We can move them around to interior at the opposite edge, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, right, you're looking at, 25 mil a year for Laramie Tunsil at the top, Andrew Thomas, 23 and a half. Jordan Mailata recently got, 22 million. You're looking at Garrett Bowles, even a little further down at 17. Orlando Brown Jr. for the Bengals, he's at 16 mil. So those, that's just kind of your range in your kind of top 10. That's a good amount of money to pay. But ultimately, where are you comfortable, committing to a Braxton Jones, but also trying to take advantage of the rookie contract, but knowing that you have a lot of other decisions to make down the road financially.
So that was the thing about Charles Leno, even after he got released and the Commanders gave him a deal, he was paid right in line with his performance. He was, I think, paid as like the 19th or 18th best left tackle in football or something like that, which was totally in line and commiserate with what most people thought he was. Like, no one thought he was a world beater. Just like I don't think anyone is actually going to think that Braxton Jones is a world beater. I think the issue lies with you just want more. And wanting more can sometimes get you stuck in that place of, well, now you wish you had that top 16 or 17 left tackle, right?
Yeah. Because
now you're trying to find that top half of the league left tackle because yours, frankly, sucks.
And it's just funny how this works. I was just looking again, scrolling down, trying to find where the Bears fall in this list of how much getting paid. So Karan is in total value making 5.9 million, and right now Braxton is making 3.9 just because of obviously where they were drafted. It's just funny how that works. It's just silliness. But yeah, definitely something to keep an eye out for. How does Braxton perform in training camping this year, and does he earn big bucks, and can the Bears afford?
And the other part of it becomes, does some team who values him still on that rookie deal, do they want to pony up and trade you something for him? Because he does show something, and maybe they do love Karan Amagaji to a certain extent.
Which would be very interesting. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll dive back in with number 7. All right. Welcome back, Bears fans. Number 7 in our 2024 Chicago Bears training camp storylines, the quote-unquote hole at edge, and is it time to sweat? I think Danny and I have talked a bunch of times so far this offseason about the issue that if Montez Sweat goes down, you have one of the arguably, just currently how things sit, worst defensive lines in football.
So I think I've said a number of times, which almost comes off as talking about out of both sides of your mouth, as, well, yeah, Montez Sweat is really, really good, and he makes the unit all the more respectable when he's healthy. But if he gets injured, which it's not a fair game to play, but then you also say on the other hand, like, it's the NFL, everyone gets hurt.
Right.
So it's a weird place to live in when you're like, well, yeah, Montez Sweat is awesome, but the rest of the line kind of sucks.
And June 27th, 2024 is way too early to be freaking out about what the final 53 is going to look, because, and we talked about this a little bit, I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, is why would you, during things like OTAs and things of that nature, take away really valuable reps from some of your other edges? Booker comes to mind in particular. Let him get all the reps you can early on, and then let's say we get into training camp and early on, and then you start to get a little later, you can still always go out and get a Yannick Ngakoue. He's still sitting there. He knows this defense. You don't need to sign that guy, because what was it last year, like August 6th, 5th or something, that he got signed last year? Don't take away Yannick Ngakoue doesn't need those reps. He can chill at home or wherever he's at right now. Austin Booker, some of these other edges, they need the reps. See what you have and see if you ultimately need to go sign a guy like that.
It's totally feasible. Maybe Austin Booker comes in like Mark Anderson years ago. And yeah, maybe he's just a one-trick pony, but his one trick is really valuable as a rookie. Because it cannot be said enough. Like, Austin Booker was thought of, had he returned to Kansas, as a potential top 2-round pick.
Yeah.
Like, is it a lot to put on him this early in his career as a 5th rounder? Yes, unfairly so. And I don't think he's going to be alone, and I don't think he's going to be thought of as a starter early on. But I'm just saying the pedigree and what people thought of him at some point was there and is there still. The guy has yet to be an NFL down. But I also do think it's fair to worry, but don't be concerned about what the line could look like should and if Montez Sweat goes down, because we're still so early in the process of the offseason. We're not even to training camp. Like, we have a whole nother month until training camp starts.
And I would also throw out there too, I mean, I'm looking at now more end of the roster at that edge position. I'm over the Dominique Robinson experiment. I know you hear Adam Johns talked about this a couple of weeks ago about how he looks different physically. He's really filled out, apparently put on more muscle. So great. Let's see what that looks like. But at the end of the day, he had that sack in the 49ers game, and then hasn't done anything since then, the one in the monsoon. I'd rather see what Austin Booker can do. I'd rather see what John Marie Croma, James Madison, undrafted free agent, can do. I know Keith Randolph out of Illinois is a 3-tech, but if you're just trying to figure out bodies on the line, I'd rather have that at this point.
I mean, I would rather give reps to Zach Pickens because of the pedigree he had coming out of South Carolina. I get he didn't have the most spectacular rookie year, but Pickens at least offers some intrigue that isn't, well, at least he was a basketball athlete who's now a defensive end. And I liked Dominique Robinson. I just think the ship has sailed on that experiment.
So there are players on the end of that depth chart that can be moved off and to allow you to see some of these guys, or like we talked about, a potential veteran who's yet to be named, yet to be signed. But I would be surprised if you go into week 1 as it currently sits at the same time. Next up, at number 6, this received a perfect 7, actually, in terms of the average voting, how that worked out. This is also where I took some liberties and I combined 2 together. So the Nate Davis availability actually ended up getting 11th place at tying the punter performance at 11.166. I felt that they tied in together enough that we can have a slight discussion about both. Center competition do the Bears consider a Connor Williams, who is not expected to go back to the Dolphins? And then, of course, how Nate Davis's availability potentially affected the center competition so far.
So personally, I'd be genuinely shocked to an extent if they even explored Connor Williams, because the cap remaining is kind of a lie. Like, there's not much money left in terms of what they can spend this offseason, because they still have to sign Rome Odunze. I believe they still have to sign Caleb Williams. There's people that need to get their rookie deal, which is going to be tearing into the money remaining. And I don't know how this regime feels about Nate Davis. They gave him a good amount of money to come here, obviously, to be the starter at guard. And, obviously I hope he's doing all right mentally and everything, but the missing OTAs and missing minicamp, missing parts of training camp thing is not new for Nate Davis. Last year's was more extenuating circumstances, obviously, when you found out his mother passed away. And like I said, I hope he's doing well mentally with everything still. But we've moved on past that, right? Like, and we're still missing workouts. And we're still seeing him not participate. He just, to some extent, he just doesn't like practicing. And that's great if you're one of the premier talents in the league. Like, you know, you go back years and years and years ago to the Allen Iverson, we talking about practice. It's one of the 30 to 50 greatest players of all time. Nate Davis ain't in that conversation. And he's just not practicing again.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a cap guru or anything like that. So, and for the most part, when you look at some of the effective cap available, and as Danny mentioned, the people that still need to be signed, it does seem like relatively unlikely that the Bears would sign a Connor Williams. Just because of that, I guess I wouldn't rule it off because, again, I just don't understand the cap enough to like fully say no to that. Plus, as the Eagles have shown, the cap is fake. You can do all these crazy ass things. But
I mean, yeah, there's always money in the banana stand.
Yeah. What we do know is that initially, Ryan Bates, it was said, starting center. All of a sudden, you hear from multiple individuals, Eberflus, your offensive line coach in particular, that it is a competition, right, with Coleman Shelton. So where does that come from? Does that come from a struggle from Ryan Bates earlier on in OTA, or does it relate to a Nate Davis issue where, well, what if we can't play Nate? And do we play, Ryan over at guard, and do we put Coleman at center? Like, so we don't know that for sure in terms of where that falls, but I mean, you got to take it all into consideration.
You do. And considering the majority of Ryan Bates' snaps in his career are not at center, they're at guard. And Coleman Shelton, I believe, has, if memory serves him, going purely off memory, he has experience with Shane Waldron, right? He's been under Shane Waldron prior.
Yes.
And then Ryan Bates being a guard. At some point, it's not getting the most talented guys at each spot. It's getting the guys that are going to work the best and play the most games together. So I genuinely would not be shocked if at some point in the season, if even to open the season, if your starting interior is Tevin, Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, because they just don't trust Nate Davis's availability.
And to go off what Danny was just talking about there, Brian Bates was a backup for the Bills in 2023. He was active for every game, but only was on the field for 35 offensive snaps, according to Pro Football Reference. Coleman Shelton was on the field for 1,114 snaps, and those are mainly at center.
That sounds like a lot.
He is a professional football center, and yeah, when you look at PFF grades, I believe he's somewhere in the 20s, but you look at previous Bear centers and they were somewhere in the do you exist as a center conversation, right? So it's not a big upgrade, but it's an upgrade. And as Danny said, it's about the best 5 as they work together. And if ultimately you might have a slightly less talented center there, but you're better as a whole because you could slide who you wanted at center to guard, that's probably better off. But I'm not ruling out Nate Davis, but I wouldn't be surprised if week 4 you're not looking at him as a starter for some reason. Next up, Dino Dex domination. So this connects to some of our line talk in a way. If you look at across most media, whether it's Bears, whether it's national, all these things, if the conversation's not about Caleb, if it's not about Rome, if it's about 3-tech, and it's about, can Javon Dexter be not like a top 5 3-tech, but can he be a functional 3-tech that stops the run and pushes the pocket?
I'm really, really torn on this because I know we saw, especially in the back third of the season, stuff that made us really excited about what Gervon could be. But if you really take a step back and look at it and evaluate it fairly, he was on a snap count. He was very much a situational player. And a lot of his flash reps came against bad quarterbacks and bad teams after Montez Sweat had gotten here. Now, I think give his physical attributes and the things he can do, not many people can do. He's a very toolsy athlete at the defensive tackle position. But all things being equal, his pad level is atrocious on a snap-to-snap basis. He just does not keep good pad level. And that's a very, very hard life to live at that size and that height in a phone booth. And I just worry about his long-term effectiveness when he's not playing with natural leverage, when he doesn't play with good natural pad level. And it's clearly something he has to think about, and it has to be coached into him. And you factor all that in with the get-off problems that he had coming out of Florida. Like, I think he
get-off problems really be a true problem. I don't know that looking back, I was like, man,
they weren't as pronounced as they were in Gainesville, to be fair. I just think it's another thing to add on to it.
Sure, yeah.
Where even if you're a millisecond slow with that pad level, you've lost, right? You've already lost the rep. So I just wonder, is it fair to put the expectation on him of he's the guy that's going to have this leap when he's already got certain things working against him, and all of the stuff you talk about from him came on a pitch count or a role-playing basis and not with any consistency at all?
So let me ask you this. If he ended the season with 5 sacks, 49 total tackles, and 12 pressures, good or bad year?
Good. It's acceptable. He's done well. I'm assuming that's Justin Jones.
Yes, that is Justin Jones. The only thing I was off on, QB hits was 17. But yeah, Justin Jones gave you 4.5 sacks last year, 49 combined tackles, 17 hits, QB hits. And I think for the most part, fans were fine with what Justin Jones did. I mean, I know when he left, I was like, dang, you got to fill that. And they didn't. So if you can get, I just also want to have a measured approach with this where he doesn't need to be Aaron Donald. He doesn't need to be even more.
Oh, for sure. But that's what I'm saying.
Fans need to be, hey, like, you just need production out of your 3-tech. It doesn't need to be astronomical.
No, and that's what I'm saying though, Mason. Like, I feel like by and large, you get on the Bears Twitter sphere or the Reddit area, and people are expecting him to become like this thing at defensive tackle. When in reality, if he becomes Justin Jones, you're winning. Like, and I think it's because of, you look up the RAS, and I believe he has near 10, like he's like at a 9.65 RAS or something like that. Like, he's specially gifted at that position. But it's like you're expecting him to be something, and it's putting almost an unfair expectation on him, especially after he did the Caleb Williams thing with his phone background. Oh my God. And it's like, yeah, I could put things on my phone too as goals for 2024. Doesn't mean I can accomplish them.
I do, as meatball as it sounds, and I agree with you, like, I could put whatever the hell I want on my phone. At least he's setting the goals.
Oh, absolutely. I'm saying it's good to have goals. It's just like, I don't know if he's capable.
One thing I feel like I've gotten the benefit of doing is spending more time with professional athletes over the last couple of years.
Sure.
And it's amazing how many just show up for the check. You know, it is nice to, not diminishing anything you said, by the way, but it is nice. It is nice to see someone who's like, even if the goals are ridiculous, like at least you're setting them. Like, because some people just want to be like, look, I made it, I'm here, and it's like, no, dude, like, no, you're not. No, you didn't.
Being gifted genetically is a wonderful thing, man.
That it is. one more quick break, and then we'll wrap up this list. All right, number 4. This came in with a overall vote of 5.83333. Repeating, Roma Odunze, 2024 impact. So to re-sign Keenan or not to re-sign Keenan. So this is here. It's multifactorial, right? It's what is Roma Odunze's impact on the offense? Period. How does it change with the chemistry that he and Caleb may develop as coming into the same class and hanging out and maybe having a little more in common than some of the other receivers? How do we expect the targets maybe to look when he's the third in the pecking order of receivers, let alone factoring in tight end and running back? And then lastly, kind of what does he need to look like in order for Ryan Poles to look at the request from Keenan Allen's agent and say, no, we're good?
Oh, man. So I think you and I are on different sides of the coin when it comes to Keenan. I believe, if memory serves, you believe he's a one and done. Like he'll be gone next year.
I just think it depends on how much he asks for, which is I know, baby answer by me.
But unless it's ridiculous, I believe he's probably back. Like, I know it was a weaker class on the depth front, et cetera, but they did trade a 4th round pick for him. He is closing in tight with Caleb Williams. He is a different style of receiver than Rome Odunze, right? He theoretically fits seamlessly with the other two, and it gives, as his career starts to slow down and his skills begin to diminish, which, let's be real here, he's probably going to have a soft tissue injury at some point this year. He's good for one about every year. That's just who Keenan Allen is. I just don't know what he's thinking monetarily or what he even expects he can get. Like, I know the wide receiver market was was reestablished with, who was it? Like Jamar Chase, right? Got his new deal. And
I mean, Justin Jefferson's out the top with
Justin Jefferson. Yeah. So so new players got their deal, but he's not in their same realm, like, as player. I don't care what his production was. Like, he's just not the same guy in terms of athletic capabilities, age, anything. So you factor all that in, and you factor in the new quarterback, the relationship. I think he's going to be here. I just don't know at what number. And the only way I see him walking is if he's just so unwilling to budge off what he believes he's worth, that the possibility at competing the next 2 to 3 years following this year with a young ascending quarterback versus just going to chase the check is being outweighed.
And it's tough because none of us are obviously in Keenan's head.
Right.
When he was asked a bit about contract and things like that, he didn't sound like a guy ready to take a discount either. So he he's in the final year of a 4-year, $45 million extension that he had with the Chargers. There was $20 million that was fully guaranteed with a $9.5 million signing bonus. His cap hit this year is $23 million. If you look at where that falls, I mean, that's, he's just below Mike Evans. He's actually just below DJ Moore as well. Guys above him, DK Metcalf, Nico Collins, Devontae Smith, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Michael Pittman. He just signed a deal and is making 23. Again, it depends on how much the impact he has. It depends on what he does. You have the benefit of a rookie contract. But, I mean, if he came to you and said, hey, I'm better than Michael Pittman. He made $23 million. I need 24. Are you paying him that? 2-year deal, $24 million each year.
No.
Yeah, I'm not either.
No, I don't think so. And I see in the comments over here, this guy, Kevin Coppernell, brought up a 3rd-round comp pick. So that all factors into a comp pick formula. I would be willing to bet the Bears aren't getting any comp picks after next offseason because they're going to be trying to spend and build the defense back up after everything that's gone into the offense this offseason. Especially because they're going to be looking to compete. Banking on any sort of comp pick outside of maybe like a 6th or maybe 5th rounder is a fool's errand, in my personal opinion. I wouldn't even be thinking about that at all.
I guess I'm just worried that Keenan's gonna do well because I think he'll do well with how Caleb wants to play, just because of how he plays. I'm worried that, and this is now me going worst case scenario. You got that. Maybe Jerron does not prove to be enough of the guy you want him to be, so you have to maybe go out and sign a 3 tech. Austin Booker still needs more time, so he's not necessarily your edge. Do you go sign an edge? There's money. Guard. We took do you keep Kevin Jenkins? Do you extend Kevin Jenkins? Nate Davis, you have to fill that hole. I mean, we can keep going. That's a lot of money you're having.
It goes on and on. And what happens if Caleb goes to management and says, I want to keep Keenan?
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Now all of a sudden you have to factor. So very, very early to be able to say this, but I guess, is there a performance that exists from a Rome Odunze that makes Keenan expendable?
Sure.
Okay. That was cool.
Sure. There's a performance that exists. If he
is
goes
it astronomical or is it likely?
No, I think it's within the realm of possibility. Is 950 with 5 touchdowns on, I don't know, 75 to 80 grabs ridiculous?
No, I think that's, I don't know that I'd put money on that he's doing that, but I think it's the realm of possibility.
Sure, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there's a realm of possibility where it happens. Do I think it's likely? Not particularly, no.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see, that's for sure. All I'm telling you, can tell people is in redraft leagues, I don't know that I'm taking any receivers because I don't know who's going to do well.
Folks, don't hear the numbers. I'm doing these numbers off the top of my head. I was just coming up with
guaranteed roll 950. 5 touchdowns. Number 3, top 5 defense or lucky QB schedule. The Bears did not play a very good schedule to end the year. But they ended as what, like a top 5 defense, I think, by a lot of metrics.
Yeah, I think it was top 5 by DVOA.
The 2 best quarterbacks, arguably, you played. Well, 3, I guess you could say. You played Jordan Love, you played Jared Goff, and you played Kyler Murray with a pretty bad Cardinals team, mind you. Is this defense for real? Is it you just played a really bad schedule to end the year, somewhere in the middle?
I feel like I say this all the time on our show, but it's like the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? Like, it can be possible that Montez Sweat was the great elevation or the great elevating factor for the defense, right? It can also be true that Kyler Gordon was just getting better, that Tyree Stevenson was just getting better, that that even though I don't want to say railed on, but even though I just kind of poo-pooed the things that Gervon Dexter did, that he was just getting better. Players get better as they age, typically, if they're being coached well.
And I think Eberflus is a good defensive coach.
And I think Eberflus and it's clear that even offense, defense, whatever, that his guys like and respect him. He might be a tad bit strange to those on looking, which I hate to say it this way, but go talk to a professional football player. They're weird. they're weird people, man. Professional athletes in general they're strange guys. Like, it's the nature of it. But
I mean, if you want another example, go rewatch or watch for the first time the in-season Hard Knocks with the Dolphins. And Mike McDaniels is a weird dude in the best way possible. But the way that he talks to and the speeches that he gives to players, and not just him, but the rest of that staff, you do that in a board meeting somewhere, and people are gonna be like, "What the heck is wrong with this guy?" Like what's going on? But in a football room, in a football realm, that hits.
Yeah, it hits a certain way. So I think, do I think they're going to be a top 5 unit again this year? Potentially. Do I think top 8 to 10 is more likely? Yeah, probably, because I don't trust the defensive line and what they can be. It's really what it comes down to. But I think that a lot of it really just does come down to the fact that players got better. And the defense's job, should Caleb be everything people believe him to be, that this offense scores points under Shane Waldron the way that we think they should, the defense's life is made easier. Torrey Taylor is going to, theoretically, if he keeps pinning people inside the 15 and 10 yard line, it's going to make the defense's job easier.
Super impactful player, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Mason, super impactful player, the most impactful.
I'm cutting that as a soundbite. Perfect. Well, I'm glad you brought up Shane Waldron because our number 2 was about Shane Waldron getting weapons on the field, tight end usage, and formation deployment. We've talked about on this show, and I know people have talked to death. Shane Waldron likes his tight ends, or he did at least in Seattle. A lot of 12 and 13 personnel. But and he was asked specifically about this a little bit. I wish they had dived more into it with some of the media that was talking to him at some of the interviews. But with this crop of individuals, right? We talked about the 3 receivers, but you also have Cole Kmet. You have Everett, who could be a tight end 1B-ish in a lot of other places. You have DeAndre Swift out of the backfield. What formations do they use? Do they use as much 12 and 13? I mean, because if you do 13, now you're taking Rome Odunze off the field. Like, so basically, how do you maximize all these weapons and at the same time, too, keep people happy? Because we know, too, that, I mean, these players want to maximize what they can do, whether you're talking about contract-wise or just because they're used to being alphas and all that jazz. How the heck do you feed all these mouths?
Oh, you said it best with the terminology used to end your little spiel there. Mouths need to be fed. You now have a bunch of professionals who expect the football. DeAndre Swift, Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet, the wide receiver trio. Like the guys you start talking about not needing the ball gets to like Mercedes Lewis and Khalil Herbert out of the backfield, right?
Yeah.
When you're just talking about guys who just don't expect the football, at least in passing situations. Like, I don't know. It matters so much. And if all the hype regarding Waldron's hiring is what we're led to believe it is, he should be able to manage the egos and the personalities and the expected workload that these guys want and have. That being said, it's also on the athletes to understand when there are this many professional contributors that your numbers might decrease. Keenan Allen had maybe not even arguably, had the best season of his career last year. That was in large part because Mike Williams was hurt, and he was largely alone, being Justin Herbert's number 1 option, right? If not only option. So is he going to be okay maybe being 3rd on the pecking order for the receiving core when we're halfway through the season? I don't know.
I mean, if you add up last year, Keenan Allen had 1,200 yards, DJ Moore had 1,300 yards, and Cole Kmet had 700. You add that up, and I mean, you're already at a decent chunk of yards at that point, right? And you haven't even factored Rome Odunze and again Everett. And
I would fully expect Cole Kmet's production to drop precipitously. I wouldn't expect him near 600 yards again. And if he does, that means something might have gone wrong in the training room.
Why though? Like, if the guy's open, the guy's open.
Because I don't think even if he is open, it matters. He's not the best player.
I think there's a different argument. I don't know. Like, if you're going to tell me that Reed 1, 2, 3 are the other guys, and then Cole Kmet's 5, I guess I could get behind that. But we also just talked about formation wise. I mean, there's going to be a time where it's DJ, Keenan, and then Cole, and also Waldron uses the tight ends. We talked about that.
Right. Well, my pushback on that is it because, like, let's be real here. DJ Moore is better than DK Metcalf, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Keenan Allen is better than Tyler Lockett, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Rome Odunze is better than Jackson Smith and Jigba, yes or no?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, could that not be then said that the receivers here are just better than the receivers were in Seattle? and the tight ends here are maybe lesser than they were in Seattle. So he's playing to his groupings.
That's sort of the conversation. Yes.
I'm not sitting here saying yes or no. I'm asking the question.
And then there's we're playing week 1 against the Titans, and we know they have a new linebacker, and we like the matchup, and we're going to pick on it because I don't care Cole, because we like the matchup against Cole more than we like. There's other factors too.
So Mercedes Lewis season is what you're saying.
He did score a touchdown last year, the one. But anyway, it'll be really interesting. As long as we just talked about this, clearly.
I wasn't trying to come off any certain way. I was just trying to measure the personnel. That's all.
Exactly, and that's what we started this conversation with. Is I'm confused and wondering how this is going to happen because yes, I think all 3 of those receivers are better than what Seattle had. And does Shane use 12, 13 personnel as much as he did because of what he had, or is that baked into who he is? And we'll see.
And then it's also worth noting you listen to people I believe like Matt Bowen and Ben Solak who are saying who break down the whole NFL, not just one team like we do here on Bare Bones, like who say he's much more akin to a middle of the road to above average play caller than he is the cream of the crop guys that people are just banging down doors to hire as a head coach. Now that will change if Caleb Williams is what everyone believes him to be, because someone's just going to attribute Caleb Williams' development to Shane Waldron. But
so I, from a interesting source, heard that the Bears liked the idea of Shane Waldron and Caleb because they felt that Shane's floor was high enough and Caleb's ceiling was high enough that would work very well. And then if and when Shane got the opportunity to move on in a positive way, that then they could go get the fancy dancy offensive coordinator.
So it kind of works in both regard, right?
Yeah.
Shane may not ever be good enough to get that next job. Maybe he's just the guy.
If Caleb is what we hope he is, he's going to get a crack, right?
Right. Maybe he's just a terrible interviewee, though.
Oh, potentially.
And we're not saying we don't know this to be certain. We're spitballing ideas as to what
speculating. Eric Bieniemy's it or something. I don't know. All right, number 1, pretty obvious. This got 1.16666 in terms of the ranking here. Caleb, training camp overall, preseason performance. How much does it matter? What matters? Does the Hall of Fame game, should he play in it? How many snaps does he need in the preseason? Take the floor, Danny.
I think you should play him not as many, but the snaps you deem that are needed against the first team players. I tend to err on the side of football is a game that requires callousing, and Agreed. you need to play in order to acquire and build up necessary callousing. So there's going to be an adjustment to the game speed. He's not just going to walk in and be the best thing since sliced bread. It's just not how it works.
Is sliced bread that great? I never understood that phrase.
No, I don't either. But I'm rolling with the turn of phrase there, Mason. Come on, man. But I don't know, man. Like I want him to play. I want all these guys to. The Bears aren't good enough to just not play guys. And I understand the worry and the thought process of, well, they're going to get hurt. This, that, the other. Yeah, you could rip your Achilles walking off a curb.
We see stories literally every year where someone's getting out of a freaking cold tub, slip, and tear their Achilles.
Sammy Sosa years ago yanked his latissimus dorsi sneezing. Like, what are we doing, guys? All right, Caleb, don't sneeze anymore. Stop that. Like, I want him to play. Do I think it matters in the grand scheme of things in terms of his performance? No, I do not. I think the reps are necessary, though, for the callousing and for the adjustment to game speed at the NFL.
I also don't necessarily, specifically training camp wise, I didn't love the whole way they handled the Colts last year, where they had really hard week of
Uh-huh.
practice that simulated a game, and then like a bunch of people got hurt, and Tevin Jenkins had the two pulled calves. The idea was that they could control the practice but still have high intensity, and it was like, I just in sports have had hard practices. It is not the same as a game. I don't care if it's preseason or
No, it's
regular.
not.
I just
It's
don't love that.
It's never going to be the same intensity. You're never going to roll out of bed for practice the way you roll out of bed for a game. It's never going to be the same. I don't care what you try to control.
Last thing I want to touch on this, and then we will wrap up the show, is a little piece that our friend of the podcast, Quentin Crisco, did, titled Projecting Caleb Williams' Rookie Season Post-Hibernation. You can see the link here, and I will actually post it in the chat when I remember to. But basically what he did was he went and looked at, and I got to pull up a picture here and throw it up for people to see. If you're listening to the podcast, I would go either check out the article itself. He did a great job. You can @ Pluck His Stats on Twitter, or just watch the video because we're going to highlight it here too. Basically what he did was set a baseline for Caleb, looked at rookie passers over the last decade, includes every top 10 pick to play at least 10 games in the rookie season since 2014. So the average rookie passer put up 175 passing yards per game and 1.2 touchdown passes per game. Then, right, what they did was they projected out. So I'm going to now get rid of that and pull this other one. Potential outcomes for Caleb's rookie year, splitting it into 9 sections. So depending on the number of games played, just in case there might be an injury or something like that. So if we look at the middle section here, which would be an average outcome. So if you played, let's say 15 games, that would be 3,259 yards, 18 passing touchdowns, 13 interceptions. If you combine rushing in there, that'd be 3,468 yards, 21 total touchdowns, and 19 total turnovers would be the jump off thought process. If that was Caleb's rookie year, Danny, where would you fall on the happy meter from a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being I hate this, burnt to the ground, and 10 being ecstatic?
7.5, 8.
And it's funny because, and the reason I wanted to highlight this is I think if you went to a large portion of Bears fandom and said, hey, would you take this? I think you would get a pretty heavy, I'm whelmed, I'm upset, I want more.
I don't think, see, this is where I maybe differ from a lot of the, I don't want to call it casual, but the Sunday to Sunday fan base, not the people that are listening to us on a Thursday in June. Like,
yeah, y'all are menches, by the way. You're great.
Say what?
Y'all are menches.
Yes, exactly. We appreciate you guys tuning in on a Thursday at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, we don't appreciate how hard this sport is sometimes, I feel like you can go to any bar in Schaumburg or Oak Lawn on a Sunday and everyone's watching the Bears in fall. And everyone thinks that because they played high school for Brother Rice or Maine South, that they can play in the NFL. Like, this game is hard.
I hate Maine South, by the way. If you went to Maine South, you suck. Just is what it is.
But the long and the short of it is, if he had that 15 game average that Quentin Crisco pulled up based on, I'm sure, historical averages and whatnot for 15
yeah, that was based off those top 10. Those other,
sure.
The Justin Herbert, DJ Stroud, Mitchell Trubisky, Bryce Young,
every single one of those numbers sets a Bears rookie record. If he is that level of productive, I don't think people understand what that looks like. Like, that's really good. If he plays all 17 games at that level, as you saw on that other one, he's pushing 4,000 yards. I believe that number, that 3,807, will be the third highest total in Bears history, behind only Eric Kramer and a Jay Cutler season where he threw, I believe, like 3,850 or 3,900, something in that realm. I'm going off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Like, that's insanity to me. like it's both great for Caleb if that's his average performance, and sad if you're looking at the Bears' history.
The bar is so low. There's never been a 4,000-yard passer.
Right. And I believe the only franchise in the NFL without a 4,000-yard passer.
Correct. There are expansion franchises that have had one. So, yay.
Correct. So the Bears, and if he did that, I think 7.5 to 8 is good. Like, that's a good year. That's only that's nearly that's like a 1.5 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio. Like, that means he probably had a rough start to the year adjusting to the NFL and got better as the year went on, right? That's what we would assume. I guess he adjusted to the NFL. Like, where would it put you, Mason, if you had to scale it 1 to 10? Like,
I would say I'd be, if you threw for, again, 3,359 yards, 18 passing touchdowns, and 13 interceptions, I would be at a 7.
Okay, yeah. So you and I are in the same ballpark.
Yeah. I'd be at a firm 7 just because, I don't know, for some reason 3,500 is like in my brain like as a number I want, and it's barely short of that. Otherwise I'd be like at an 8, 9.
Right. But you're also factoring if he plays 2 more games, he's at 3,807.
Yeah. And just, for those listening, example, again, I'm going to use 15 games as the number just because they miss games. It happens. I hope he doesn't, but if he does.
It's the NFL. Everybody misses games.
Bottom 5 was 2,633 yards, 11 passing touchdowns, 16 interceptions. I won't do the combined rushing part. Top 5, for those interested, was 4,051 yards, 27 passing touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Dear Lord, if he did that, you're going to change the rules where he can already buy into the team.
I'm streaking naked down Tui Avenue.
I just really wanted to highlight this because, one, I thought it was very interesting and great work by Q, and on Tap Sports, they always do a great job. But also to highlight, as we're going through training camp and as we're setting expectations and we roll into week 1 eventually, or even if we're in the Hall of Fame game or the Bengals game after joint practice, understand how sucky Bears history has been and how hard it is to play this sport and what good actually looks like.
And also understand that the rookies we've had the last 5 years, and Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud is the outlier. Like, Mason, can you go back and look at this? If he had, all things considered, like somewhere between the Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield rookie year, like, if that's your sliding scale, that's pretty good, right?
No, that's really good. And obviously, people who listen to this know my thought process on Trevor Lawrence, and we know what his unfortunate first year was. But I mean, like, the dude, right, had 0.7 to 1.0 passing touchdowns to interception ratio there, and he just got paid $55 million. So if he had as Danny highlighted, the Baker Mayfield year where you have 1.9 passing touchdowns per game and 1.0 interceptions per game, that's still a good year. If he could somehow magic his way to a Justin Herbert like 2.1 to 0.7 ratio, God, again, that's an amazing year.
You look at that, though, like, you realize, on a completely unrelated topic, how dirty Baker Mayfield was done by the Browns. Baker was good for them, man. I don't care.
I feel like a lot of times I stand on the island talking about how Baker is in fact a good quarterback, and people just poo-poo on him for things that are not his fault.
Yeah, 100% agreed.
That's it. All right, that's our episode. Just a little primer going into training camp, things to look out for if you're going to make it to training camp. So as a reminder, July 9th at 10 a.m., you can go ahead and, I don't know why I'm doing this, it's going to reduce the chances I get a ticket. You can go ahead and snag a training camp ticket for free via Ticketmaster. There is only 2 weekend dates, which is kind of annoying, but there's one really cool one, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That was the final weeks of August, where you can watch the joint practice with the Bengals. Even go to that one because I can't go, so try to get those tickets. I'm gonna try to get different ones. This will be a fun year. Take it in stride. There's going to be bumps along the way. You're going to hear from various media outlets that insert Caleb had a rough game, had a rough practice. You're going to hear Odunze got held out of a practice due to hamstring tightness. Keep things in perspective. Have fun. We're in a upward trajectory.
No, just everything's the end of the world, Mason.
Every single thing. That's all I got. Anything to add, Danny, before we get out of here?
Just keep tuning into Bare Bones the rest of Second City Gridiron, man. We all work hard. We all do our homework on this stuff. No one's just showing up here just and spewing nonsense out of their mouth. We're all pretty knowledgeable and informed, and we're going to do our best to keep you guys informed and updated on everything that comes through, starting with training camp and Hard Knocks that's on the way.
Please like the YouTube videos. Please like the tweets. Please share them. Please comment. It helps the algorithm. It helps us reach more Bears fans.
And give us that 5-star we deserve, man.
Yeah. Tell one person that you talk about Bears with about the show. Hey, check this out. Share it on Spotify, please.
And I'm sure, Mason, you and I are both in the same camp. We're going to try to do something remote again this year now that our lives are a little more cleaned up. So we love our breweries. Maybe we can set something up that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, bear down.